Donkey Kong Bananza recently had an excellent direct, but like anything on the internet, it has caused discourse. The talk in the town in this case being people trying to figure out how Pauline went from an adult to a 13-year-old kid. Plenty of people are coming up with theories on how Pauline could have been de-aged from her appearance in the arcade Donkey Kong, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're just looking at a reboot here, considering Nintendo has actually plenty of times looked at the Mario series and said, no, you're different now. To prove it, I thought it would be fun to look at 7 times the Mario series looked at its own canon and broke it. Perhaps the most famous example of this is with the Koopalings. They were introduced in Super Mario Bros. 3 as Bowser's children. It says so right there in the instruction booklet. They were still his kids in Super Mario World, but after that, they failed to appear for a while. Maybe Nintendo didn't like the idea that they could have been seen as Nepo hires. I'd also like to think as 3D Mario games hit the scene, Nintendo realized that creating one 3D model would be cheaper than 7. Super Mario Sunshine introducing the sole Bowser Jr. instead of a septuplet. Bowser Jr. got to be the favorite kid for a while, which I'm not surprised, he literally has Bowser in the name. But this did leave the Koopalings feeling a little redundant, and it would take until New Super Mario Bros. Wii for them to show up again. By that point, however, Nintendo had decided that Bowser Jr. was the sole kid of Bowser, and these guys, I don't know, Bowser just found him on Fiverr for hire or something. To this day, Nintendo maintains that the Koopalings are just an elite squad of underlings, and probably do not get to enjoy Thanksgiving with Papa Bowser. Mario's backstory around this time would also go on to be disputed. Considering if you look in those eyes, you can see the desire for a bacon, egg, and cheese. The initial story for the Mario Brothers was that they came from Brooklyn, New York. During this time period, American localizers could easily add their own lore to series. Just look at the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise and all of the things introduced. I doubt Yuji Naka thought that Sonic needed 2 siblings that were all voiced by Urkel. There is precedent for Nintendo Japan acknowledging that Mario came from Brooklyn. Miyamoto name-dropped Brooklyn in an interview he was giving about Super Mario 64, and in the game Mario's Time Machine, which was released in Japan, Mario proudly proclaimed that he hailed from Brooklyn himself. Clearly hasn't been forgotten by Nintendo either, as they used it for the basis of one of the best-selling Isuki movies of all time, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This would all be great if Yoshi's Island didn't show us baby Mario being born right in the Mushroom Kingdom. Look at this village, I haven't seen a single art student, there's no way it's Brooklyn, and looking at its suburban size, if it was in the real world, this would be Jersey, and that would be horrifying. And I mean, sure, plenty of young adults go to New York to find themselves at some point in their lives, but something tells me the trip from the Mushroom Kingdom would be a little harder than just hopping on the Amtrak. At this point, I'm sure as far as the games are concerned, Nintendo considers Mario to just be a Mushroom Kingdom resident, but it is interesting to see they entertain that Brooklyn backstory a little more than you may have thought. Speaking of Yoshi's Island, the environment and nature of Yoshi's definitely changed. While there was a Yoshi's Island in Super Mario World, it was really a smaller part of a greater whole. They were just part of Dinosaur Land, being only one of the inhabitants to share the space, and they were also implied to be exclusive to that area, just like you wouldn't see a bunch of Rexes wandering around Peach's castle. I guess the Cheese Bridge area, though, didn't stick in the hearts and minds of children as much as the cute dinosaur, so already by the time, well, Yoshi's Island released, you could see that the said island was much larger than its initial depiction, now being able to hold 6 times as much real estate, because it had 12 buildings instead of 2. Now, having the Yoshi visit the Mushroom Kingdom didn't break this trend. As long as there was one, he's allowed to travel. But by the time of the new Super Mario Bros. Series, it was kind of treated as if Yoshis were a natural species in the Mushroom Kingdom, which unless they brought one over at the end of Super Mario World and they spread like some kind of invasive species because Goombas and Koopas are not their natural predators. This feels more like we're throwing out the origin of the Yoshis so we can keep around the cute, marketable, plushy dinosaur. For a more recent example, Rosalina's backstory, which is told through a storybook in Super Mario Galaxy, is lauded as one of the most memorable parts of the game, and for being a pretty heart-touching story. What you might notice, though, while reading the storybook is there's a distinct lack of cars. The babies in Mario Kart are already kind of a subject of discussion, but baby Rosalina's presence there kind of contradicts everything that was set up for the character. Now, obviously, there's not a moment in the storybook where young Rosalina is like, and I'm still working on my driver's license. But baby Rosalina clearly has the same celestial power she has as an adult. Compare that to the storybook, which to be fair, shows Rosalina clearly surviving in space, but she's presented as a much more normal child. Especially before going into space, Rosalina just seems like the kind of kid that would do normal things, like go to Chuck E. Cheese, or think about going to Chuck E. Cheese. Now, it would be silly to say that Mario Kart fits into the lore, but it would seem to suggest that Nintendo's idea of what a baby Rosalina is probably very different from her storybook depiction. Focusing again on the man himself, outside of being Italian, Mario is probably second most known for being a plumber. However, there was a time where Nintendo really wanted to distance this fact from Mario. Right before the release of Super Mario Odyssey, Nintendo updated his Japanese character profile to say that he was a plumber in the past, but those days are behind him. They wanted to stress that he does cool things now. Which, I guess, sorry plumbers, it seems like Nintendo doesn't think you're that cool. It was a pretty weird time for the statement because the most recent Mario game was still Super Mario 3D World, which arguably sees Mario do some of the most plumbing we've ever seen him do. By 2018, they got rid of the guy that had a bone to pick with blue-collar workers because Mario was back to being a plumber officially. Petey Piranha is an interesting case. He's gone on to star in plenty of spin-offs, and you probably think of him as just some guy. But observant viewers might remember that Petey Piranha is kind of a lie. When you defeat him, he dissolves into goo, implying that Petey Piranha is actually just another one of Bowser Jr.'s creations with his paintbrush. No more real than swoopin' stews or slightly amusing graffiti on a bridge. However, it would seem that life truly imitates art, as, again, Petey Piranha has shown back up without the magic paintbrush. Even when you defeat him in New Super Mario Bros., he just blows up like any other regular guy, implying that he is in fact a regular guy. In retrospect, this makes Petey kinda cooler though. Like, instead of being a random Bowser Jr. creation, he just looked at this piranha and went, this guy is so cool, I have to paint him. Finally, bringing our journey full circle, let's talk about the fact that Pauline's backstory is already messy. Now, you could possibly say that Pauline in modern times and Pauline in the arcade game are different people, but if we take a look at the cover art of Donkey Kong, the Game Boy game, you can see that is modern Pauline and modern Mario to boot. But Donkey Kong is not aided by Diddy, but rather Donkey Kong Jr., who was kind enough to take a break from his math sessions to come help Donkey Kong out. This, along with the Super Mario Wiki, establishes we are dealing with the version of Donkey Kong that would go on to become Cranky Kong, but at the same time, we have the modern version of Pauline here. At the same time, it's pretty clear that Mario interacts with the modern version of Donkey Kong, who I would like to add also captured Pauline in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. So unless Kongs age super quickly to the point where they can make it through 2 generations without humans visibly aging a day, we probably have a continuity snafu on our hands. And even if they do just age really quickly, I feel like that really undermines Mario vs. Donkey Kong, because you could like wait 5 days and then he'd be too old to fight back. To that end, we can consider 13-year-old Pauline coming in to establish a concrete base to clean up all of the confusing stuff that came before her. I'm not saying you have to like it, just you could see it from that perspective. That being said, if you know more about Mario lore, and let's be real, I'm sure there are plenty of people that do, feel free to let me know in the comments if I got anything wrong. Just be nice, please. Okay, thanks. Thank you for watching this little Mario lore dump, I guess. If you appreciated this and are interested in seeing more, feel free to like or subscribe, and of course, if you would like, feel free to check me out on Twitch.